Operation Blue Star. The partition of British Raj in 1947 in the current Republic of India and Pakistan ended up having deep repercussions on the social, cultural and economical structures of Amritsar. Amritsar, a city located in the northwestern part of India, in Punjab state, which was split up into two parts. Amritsar remained on the Indian side and thus became a border town and frequent scene of Indo-Pakistani wars. Lahore, Amritsar's closest neighbouring city, stayed on the Pakistan side, where 50% of the population is made up of Muslims, but just like in Amritsar, the other 50% of the population is Sikh and Hindu. Amritsar and Lahore had to deal with the worst riots and violence throughout the partition of India, and subsequently the Muslim residents of Amritsar left en masse. Likewise, a similar situation occurred in Lahore, where the violence against Hindus and Sikhs compelled them to flee en masse. Previously, in 1919, when the Indian Revolution against the British government were just beginning, aided by the emergence of two leaders, Mahatma Gandhi and Annie Besant, the British General Reginald Dyer, having ordered a ban on all public assemblies days prior, opened fire on the Hindu demonstration with his group of Gurkha and Baluchi soldiers in the Jallianwala Bagh near the Golden Temple, killing over 400 people and injuring a huge 1,200 in a bloody attack that lasted about 10 minutes. After the massacre, Gandhi, who had previously supported British efforts in World War I in an attempt to get some level of autonomy for India, started organising campaigns against British rule, focusing less on autonomy and more on full independence. Elsewhere in Punjab, in between Lahore and Amritsar, on the Pakistani side, there is a small village called Wagah which attracts travellers' interest every day. Each evening, 2 hours before sunset, the two flags of Pakistan and India are lowered at the Wagah border, and there's a ceremony where soldiers from both Pakistan and India goose-step around on their own side with towering turbans and whilst dressed in full army attire. The ceremony attracts a huge crowd of thousands, comprised of both tourists and local people. The onlookers watch the ceremony excited, screaming insults at the other side of the border. The sound of horns starts the flag-lowering process. They are lowered slowly at exactly the same time, and then are folded and taken away. Next, one Pakistani soldier meets one Indian in the middle of the gates, and they strongly shake hands. Following the firm handshake, the soldiers face up to each other again threateningly, stamping around and fiercely glaring at each other with their cold stares and impressive facial hair. The gates are closed and the ceremony comes to an end until the next day. In June 1984, there was a huge amount of tension between the Sikh community and the Indian federal government. There had been many murders committed by the Punjab separatist movement led by Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. For 6 years, Bhindranwale had been telling his followers that Sikhs had become slaves to the majority Hindu population. Their terror campaign was successful. They attacked police and extorted money from the terrorized villagers. Bhindranwale and his followers hid away with a lot of weapons in the holiest, most sacred Sikh palace, the Golden Temple, Akal Takht, demanding independence for Punjab. After a long drawn-out negotiation, the Sikh leader and his followers turned down calls to lay down the weapons. The subsequent response from the then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, was to give them an ultimatum before forcibly ousting them from the sacred palace. At last, on the 4th of July, Indira Gandhi and the government put a curfew on the entire state and gave the order to the Indian army to assault the Golden Temple, Akal Takht. The operation was led by General Kuldip Singh Brar and was carried out with the Special Forces Unit and the Paratroopers Unit. Infantry, artillery, 6 tanks and helicopters attacked the temple, but the temple was heavily fortified. Young Sikhs emerged from manholes to fire and lob grenades, causing havoc, before hiding back underground in secret tunnels. The defences of the temple were ingeniously thought out. But after a lengthy 7 days of heavy fighting and bloodshed, the Indian army took back the battle-worn temple. The followers and the leader Bhindranwale were killed in the attack, along with nearly 100 Indian army soldiers. Sadly, in addition, more than 500 pilgrims who weren't able to escape when the attack began were killed too. The Sikh community considers the attack as the gravest desecration of their holy place, and the aftermath of the military action was even more horrendous than the operation itself. 4 months after the operation, on 31st of October 1984, the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was on her way to have an interview in New Delhi. As she passed the gate, guarded by her 2 bodyguards, Setwant Singh and Beant Singh, the 2 guards opened fire on the Prime Minister. Beant Singh fired 3 rounds into her abdomen, and Setwant Singh's 30 rounds from his submachine gun. After the shooting, both men put down their weapons, and Beant Singh said, "I've done what I had to do. You do what you want to do." In the next 4 days after the assassination, more than 3,000 Sikhs were killed in the chaotic anti-Sikh riots around India, but mostly in Delhi, where 2,100 were killed by mobs, and it was reported that 20,000 Sikhs promptly fled the city. Suspicion is that the Indian government was complicit in the riots, and moreover the Sikhism governing body of Akal Takht deems the riots as genocide. Since the Blue Star operation, General Kuldip Singh Bra has also been the target of several assassination attempts, most recently in London on September 30th, 2012, when he was knifed in the throat by 4 men outside a hotel on Oxford Street. He survived. Operation Blue Star was technically a military success because it succeeded in removing the militants. However, using tanks and heavy artillery on a place so sacred was never going to sit well with Sikhs. Deaths 1,000 followed the operation. Nowadays the Punjab region is peaceful, and talk of the fight for independence is quiet, but the memories are still fresh.